Welcome to the new video of Neurophilos. Get ready to dive into a gripping tale that will leave you breathless, thinking, and inspired. Whether you're here for the mystery, the drama, or the unexpected twists, you're in the right place. Make sure to hit that like button, drop a comment, and subscribe so you never miss another powerful story. Let's begin. The silent disconnection. Imagine walking through a crowded street, surrounded by the noise of footsteps, conversations, and car horns, yet feeling as though you're in a completely different world. Faces pass by in a blur, snippets of laughter and chatter washing over you, but nothing truly penetrates. You smile at acquaintances during social gatherings, engage in polite conversation, nod at jokes, and maintain the expected social etiquette. But inside, a strange heaviness lingers. By the end of each encounter, there's an inexplicable discomfort, a quiet exhaustion that no one else seems to notice. For many people, moments like these are temporary, fleeting, easily forgotten. But for some, this sensation is persistent. Superficial conversations feel hollow. Small talk becomes a ritual to endure rather than enjoy. And bustling environments that energize others leave them drained and overwhelmed. Even when surrounded by people, the sensation of isolation remains. A paradoxical loneliness that has little to do with shyness or disinterest. It is deeper, structural, woven into the very way they experience life. This feeling of disconnection is not a personal flaw. It is not a lack of effort, a moral failing, or a social deficiency. Instead, it is often the result of rare psychological traits that shape perception, emotion, and cognition in ways most people cannot comprehend. These traits are invisible at first glance, yet they define how these individuals navigate the world, interpret relationships, and interact with the chaos of everyday life. What appears to be discomfort or detachment is, in fact, a complex interplay between neurological sensitivity, emotional awareness, and cognitive depth. Traditional psychology has long misunderstood such individuals, labeling them as withdrawn, socially awkward, or overly shy. But research by experts like Dr. Elaine Aron has offered a new perspective. Some people are neurologically highly sensitive, with brains that process stimuli, both internal and external, more profoundly. Their nervous systems respond more intensely, their perception of emotional nuances is heightened, and they register subtle environmental changes that escape the notice of others. While these traits provide extraordinary insight and empathy, they also create what can feel like a constant sensory and emotional avalanche. A crowded room, a casual remark, or a shift in tone of voice may overwhelm them, not because they lack resilience, but because their nervous systems absorb and amplify every detail. This hypersensitivity extends beyond the senses into cognition, morality, and social perception. They notice the faintest tension in a conversation, the almost imperceptible change in facial expression, and the underlying emotional currents that most people overlook. Their world is richer, more layered, and more intricate, but also more exhausting. To cope, they often withdraw from social settings, not out of disdain or fear, but as a necessary form of protection. Isolation becomes a shield, a way to prevent mental and emotional collapse. Modern society, however, rarely accommodates this heightened state of awareness. A world that rewards constant activity, performative extroversion, and relentless sociability leaves little space for reflection, depth, or sensitivity. Those who do not conform to the norms of charisma and outward exuberance are often labeled as strange, aloof, or indifferent. Yet what these individuals carry is not a deficit, but a gift. An ability to perceive subtlety, to empathize deeply, and to experience the world with clarity and intensity that most cannot access. Depth, emotional insight, and radical authenticity, qualities increasingly rare in a fast-paced, surface-driven society, reside at the heart of their experience. For those who feel this silent disconnection, the sensation is not merely social awkwardness or introversion. It is the lived reality of being profoundly attuned to the complexities of life, a heightened sensitivity that shapes every interaction, every thought, and every feeling. Their disconnection is a signal not of weakness, but of a world that often overwhelms and misunderstands them. A world that prizes appearance over depth, speed over reflection, and noise over silence. In this chapter, we begin to explore this reality, the silent universe of those who perceive, feel, and experience the world more intensely than most, who walk among others yet often feel alone. Their journey is one of quiet struggle and extraordinary insight, and understanding it requires more than superficial observation. It demands empathy, attention, and a willingness to see beyond the surface. Childhood, trauma, and hypervigilance. For highly sensitive individuals, the roots of their silent disconnection often begin long before adulthood, in the subtle messages and experiences of childhood. From a very early age, they are acutely aware of the emotions around them, the frustration in a parent's tone, the unspoken tension between siblings, the fleeting disapproval in a teacher's glance. While most children shrug off small criticisms or minor conflicts, these individuals register everything with amplified intensity. Each word, each look, each shift in the environment leaves a lasting imprint, shaping the emerging self in profound ways. It is not uncommon for sensitive children to hear phrases like, "Stop being so dramatic," "Don't take everything so seriously," or "You think too much." While seemingly innocuous, these repeated remarks can function as tiny emotional microaggressions. Over time, they accumulate, quietly convincing the child that their natural depth of feeling and perception is somehow wrong, excessive, or inconvenient. They learn early that the world is safer when they hide their true selves, when they dampen their responses, and when they observe quietly rather than act openly. These early experiences cultivate hypervigilance, a heightened state of alertness to possible judgment, rejection, or emotional threat. Sensitive children often learn to anticipate the reactions of others, scanning for signs of disapproval before acting, measuring each word, gesture, and expression for potential risk. The strategy works. By staying cautious and restrained, they avoid confrontation, criticism, or social friction, but it comes at a cost. Over time, this hypervigilance becomes a habitual mode of existence, automatic and largely unconscious. As these children grow, the patterns they have internalized continue to shape their behavior. Adults who were highly sensitive as children may appear composed, polite, and observant to outsiders, yet inside they are constantly monitoring, analyzing, and preparing for potential discomfort. They may excel at reading social cues, noticing subtleties others miss, and empathizing with emotions that remain unspoken. Yet this vigilance exacts a profound toll, leading to chronic fatigue, social anxiety, and a persistent sense of being out of step with the world. Dr. Elaine Aron, in her seminal work, The Highly Sensitive Person, describes how sensitive individuals encode childhood experiences with intensified emotional weight. A minor criticism or fleeting conflict that another child might forget can become a deeply significant memory. This amplification shapes personality and behavior, fostering a constant inner alertness to potential threats, both external and emotional. The sensitive child learns to retreat, to remain quiet, to analyze before responding, and to hide aspects of themselves that might provoke misunderstanding. The consequences of this early conditioning extend well into adulthood. The adult who emerges from this background may be empathetic and highly intuitive, yet chronically exhausted. They may possess a rich inner world, but struggle to connect with the outer world. Their sensitivity becomes both a source of profound insight and a barrier to effortless social engagement. Each interaction carries layers of meaning, each criticism reverberates with intensity, and each misstep may feel catastrophic. Society often misinterprets these patterns. In a culture that prizes extroversion, immediacy, and performative confidence, those who are reflective, cautious, and deeply attuned may be labeled as strange, withdrawn, or aloof. Yet their behavior is not a choice. It is a learned strategy, a shield against an environment that overwhelms and invalidates. The quiet withdrawal, the careful observation, and the internalization of experiences are mechanisms of survival. A way to navigate a world that does not naturally accommodate heightened sensitivity. Understanding this dynamic is crucial. The silent struggles of sensitive individuals are not signs of weakness or moral failing. They are the result of repeated experiences that shape identity, perception, and emotional regulation from an early age. The world has taught them to be cautious, to filter themselves, and to protect their inner lives. This protection, while essential, often fuels the very disconnection that leaves them longing for deeper understanding and genuine connection. By examining the childhood roots of sensitivity, we begin to see the pattern behind the paradox. The very traits that make these individuals deeply perceptive, empathetic, and insightful are also the ones that isolate them. Their hypervigilance and internalized caution are survival mechanisms, responses to a world that misunderstood them. And it is within this context that their adult experiences, social fatigue, withdrawal, and a constant search for authenticity must be understood. Depth of processing and cognitive intensity. Among the rare psychological traits that shape the experience of highly sensitive individuals, perhaps none is as defining or as exhausting as depth of processing. For these people, life is never merely what it appears to be on the surface. Every interaction, every event, every fleeting detail becomes material for reflection, analysis, and internal dialogue. A simple conversation is rarely simple. A passing remark can trigger hours of thought, and even seemingly minor social encounters are scrutinized, replayed, and reinterpreted from every conceivable angle. Imagine finishing a meeting with colleagues and, later that night, replaying every word, every gesture, every micro-expression, asking yourself questions like, was I clear enough? Did I come across the right way? Did they feel uncomfortable around me? For someone without this trait, these questions might never arise. For the highly sensitive person, they are unavoidable. Their minds act like ultra-high precision radars, capturing subtle tones of voice, micro-expressions, body language, and unspoken emotional currents that others miss entirely. Every nuance is noticed, every contradiction registered. This depth of processing is not a choice. It is a neurological pattern, an intrinsic cognitive architecture that shapes thought and perception. It allows sensitive individuals to notice patterns and connections, to understand complex moral dilemmas, and to anticipate consequences that might elude others. It fuels insight, creativity, and intuition. Many artists, writers, philosophers, therapists, and scientists possess this trait. It is often the engine behind profound understanding and innovation. Yet this richness comes with a cost. Constant analysis, reflection, and evaluation can be mentally exhausting. Social situations that others navigate effortlessly can become taxing fields of microanalysis. Small talk feels empty. Rituals of politeness feel forced. Encounters that happen out of obligation feel hollow. While others move through daily interactions with ease, those with depth of processing experience a cognitive intensity that is invisible to outsiders. It is a silent, exhausting labor of the mind. Depth of processing is closely intertwined with introspection and self-criticism. Individuals with this trait tend to revisit mistakes, question their decisions, and replay past interactions with relentless precision. This habit can foster emotional growth, self-awareness, and moral reflection. But it can also trap the individual in spirals of rumination. Quick, impulsive decisions, fast-paced environments, and superficial interactions can feel jarring, stressful, or even alienating. The world moves too fast for a mind that needs time to parse, reflect, and absorb. The paradox of depth of processing lies in its dual nature. It isolates and connects simultaneously. On one hand, the sensitive thinker is often lonely, fatigued by social interaction, and prone to withdrawal. They may feel alien in a society that prioritizes speed, efficiency, and performative energy. On the other hand, this very trait allows them to perceive hidden truths, understand complex emotional landscapes, and engage with life in a profoundly meaningful way. Their insights are deep, their understanding nuanced, and their perspective often visionary, but it comes at the price of constant mental vigilance. Social fatigue emerges as a natural consequence. The more they process, the more exhausting each interaction becomes. Superficiality is not merely uninteresting, it feels intolerable. Repetition, empty conversations, and social performance create a sense of cognitive friction, pushing them towards solitude as a form of self-preservation. Withdrawal, therefore, is not rejection of others, but a necessary measure to protect mental and emotional equilibrium. This depth also fuels perfectionism and heightened self-awareness. When every experience is scrutinized, evaluated, and connected to past failures or perceived inadequacies, the individual develops exacting standards for themselves and others. The desire to be understood, to act correctly, or to achieve meaningful outcomes intensifies. Social interactions become a balancing act between internal ideals and external expectations. A tightrope walked with constant attention to nuance, tone, and potential consequences. Ultimately, depth of processing is a gift wrapped in a challenge. It provides extraordinary insight, creativity, and empathy, yet can make the ordinary overwhelming and the superficial unbearable. Understanding this trait is essential to understanding why highly sensitive individuals often feel disconnected from the world. Their cognitive intensity is not a flaw. It is a different mode of perception, one that allows them to experience life with extraordinary clarity, yet exacts a profound personal toll. It is this very cognitive richness that makes their experience of social disconnection so poignant. Every interaction is a mirror reflecting subtleties. Every comment, a spark for reflection. Every encounter, a complex emotional map to navigate. The exhaustion is real, the isolation tangible, yet the depth allows for a life of insight, creativity, and understanding that few can achieve. In a world obsessed with speed and surface, this rare trait is both a sanctuary and a burden, a silent engine behind perception, reflection, and the longing for meaningful connection. Extreme empathy and radical authenticity. For highly sensitive individuals, depth of processing is often inseparable from extreme empathy, a capacity to feel not only their own emotions, but the emotional states of everyone around them. They do not merely notice when someone is sad, anxious, or uncomfortable. They experience it as if it were their own pain. The laughter of others may uplift, but the quiet tension in a room, the hesitation in a colleague's tone, or the subtle discomfort of a friend can linger within them long after the moment has passed. This empathy is not casual or optional. It is relentless. Their nervous systems are finely attuned to emotional nuances, scanning environments for subtleties that most people never detect. A tense conversation at a dinner table, a coworker's hidden frustration, or a stranger's fleeting anxiety can all be absorbed into their own emotional field, leaving them physically and mentally drained. This unfiltered absorption of others' emotions is often why social gatherings can feel overwhelming, even in the presence of familiar and loved ones. While empathy is often celebrated as a virtue, extreme unregulated empathy carries hidden costs. These individuals are, in a sense, walking emotional sponges. They carry burdens that are not theirs, suffer the echoes of others' pain, and experience anxiety, sadness, or irritation, triggered not by their own lives, but by the lives of those around them. Without strong psychological boundaries, the constant intake of emotional stimuli becomes a slow-acting poison, leading to fatigue, withdrawal, and even psychological burnout. Paradoxically, despite this intense emotional absorption, these individuals crave authentic connection. Superficiality is intolerable. They cannot simply participate in polite exchanges or small talk. Every interaction is filtered through their need for emotional truth. A forced smile, a strategic compliment, or an interaction driven by obligation is not merely disinteresting, it is draining. This radical authenticity shapes their relationships profoundly. They are selective, cautious, and often wary of those who cannot meet their emotional depth. Their avoidance of superficiality is not elitism, it is self-preservation. This radical authenticity does more than dictate social preferences. It is a guiding principle in life. They resist facades, performance-driven relationships, and interactions built on pretense. In a society that rewards appearance, charisma, and constant sociability, this uncompromising commitment to truthfulness can make them appear strange, distant, or even cold. Yet beneath this exterior lies a deep desire for genuine intimacy. Bonds where vulnerability is met with honesty, where emotions are acknowledged rather than dismissed, and where the unspoken currents of feeling are honored. Extreme empathy and radical authenticity are intricately linked. Empathy allows them to detect deception, pretension, or emotional inauthenticity almost instantly. Radical authenticity ensures that they cannot participate comfortably in relationships or environments that violate this emotional standard. Together, these traits create a double-edged sword: the ability to connect profoundly but only rarely, the capacity for deep understanding, yet constant risk of emotional overwhelm. For these individuals, withdrawal is a necessary defense. Solitude becomes a sanctuary where they can process emotions without interference, recharge from social and sensory overload, and reconnect with themselves. Books, art, nature, and reflective practices offer safe spaces where depth and sensitivity are nurtured rather than exhausted. Yet even in isolation, the desire for meaningful connection persists. It is a quiet flame that endures despite repeated experiences of misunderstanding, superficiality, or emotional fatigue. Extreme empathy and radical authenticity also give rise to heightened moral and social awareness. These individuals are often profoundly attuned to ethical inconsistencies, emotional dishonesty, and subtle injustices. They may feel the weight of the world's suffering, and their responses are informed by genuine compassion rather than performative virtue. This moral intensity can feel isolating, as few around them operate with the same level of awareness or depth. Ultimately, these traits define the paradox of the highly sensitive individual. They are acutely aware of the emotions and truths that others overlook, yet this awareness isolates them. They feel everything deeply, seek authenticity in every interaction, and long for meaningful bonds, yet the intensity of their sensitivity often limits how often these connections can be realized. Their lives are a careful balance between engagement and protection, connection and withdrawal, a constant negotiation between the inner world of feeling and the external world that often fails to recognize it. Extreme empathy and radical authenticity are gifts that illuminate the human experience in ways few can. They allow for profound understanding, deep compassion, and meaningful insight into life and relationships. Yet these gifts are inseparable from the exhaustion, loneliness, and longing that accompany them. For those who live with these traits, the world is both more vivid and more challenging, a landscape of beauty, pain, and emotional intensity that few can navigate as fully or as truthfully. Longing for connection, solitude, and hope. At the heart of the highly sensitive experience lies a quiet paradox. The deepest longing for connection exists alongside an instinctive retreat from the world. Those who carry rare traits such as extreme empathy, depth of processing, and radical authenticity yearn for bonds that are genuine, raw, and emotionally honest. But such bonds are remarkably difficult to find. Superficial interactions, polite exchanges, and social rituals are not enough. They crave presence, truth, and communion of essence. To them, being together is meaningless without truly being seen. This yearning, however, often collides with reality. The world moves quickly, favors surface-level communication, and rewards performative sociality. In contrast, sensitive individuals operate on a slower, deeper, and more deliberate wavelength. Even the simplest social encounter can trigger exhaustion, overwhelm, or overanalysis. Each unfulfilling interaction reinforces the sense of disconnection, creating a pattern where solitude becomes both a sanctuary and a necessity. In isolation, they can process the layers of the world, recover from emotional fatigue, and nurture their inner life. Yet the solitude is bittersweet. It shields them from overwhelm, but also highlights the absence of the deep connections they crave. The paradox is striking. Highly sensitive individuals may appear distant, cold, or detached to outsiders. Yet inside, their hearts are intensely open. They feel everything profoundly: joy, sorrow, empathy, love, and pain. Their withdrawal is not misanthropy. It is self-preservation, a way to protect their nervous system and their emotional integrity. And despite retreating from crowds, their desire for intimacy, understanding, and authentic bonds remains unwavering. This silent tension between the need for protection and the yearning for connection is central to their lived experience. Interestingly, this longing is not passive. Sensitive individuals actively seek authenticity and depth wherever it exists. They are drawn to art, literature, nature, meaningful work, and communities that honor reflection, emotional honesty, and subtlety. In these spaces, they find resonance, understanding, and the rare sense of belonging that the broader world often denies. Even brief moments of true connection, someone recognizing their insight, responding empathetically, or sharing a vulnerable truth can feel transformative, validating their existence and reminding them that their depth is a gift, not a flaw. Solitude, when embraced intentionally, becomes a tool rather than a limitation. Walking in nature, observing the rhythms of the world, or simply allowing the mind to rest without distraction restores their emotional and cognitive resources. It offers clarity, grounding, and a quiet reminder that life is more than constant stimulation and performative demands. Through these practices, sensitive individuals can reconnect with themselves, recalibrate their nervous systems, and prepare to engage with the world on their own terms. Yet there is hope beyond solitude. The recognition of their traits, understanding that their sensitivity, empathy, and depth are not weaknesses, but rare gifts, opens a path towards self-compassion and purposeful engagement. When they realize that the world does not require them to conform to superficial norms, they can choose when, where, and with whom to connect. They learn to cultivate relationships that honor their values, protect their energy, and nourish their longing for authenticity. Over time, these carefully chosen connections become bridges, linking their rich inner world to the external world in meaningful ways. Ultimately, the journey of highly sensitive individuals is a delicate balance between being and belonging, solitude and connection, intensity and rest. Their lives may be marked by periods of withdrawal and fatigue, yet these moments are not failures. They are essential processes that allow their unique gifts to flourish. In a world often obsessed with speed, noise, and superficiality, their depth, empathy, and authenticity are beacons of clarity and truth. For those who feel this way, it is vital to remember, you are not alone. There are others who perceive the world with the same intensity, who feel deeply, think profoundly, and long for real connection. Your sensitivity is not a flaw. It is a rare and essential strength, a lens through which the subtleties of life are revealed and cherished. By embracing your solitude, nurturing your inner life, and seeking authentic bonds, you can transform disconnection into a profound understanding of yourself and the world. In the end, the journey is both inward and outward. It is about finding peace in your own depth while remaining open to those who truly resonate with your inner reality. This path may be challenging, but it is also rich, meaningful, and entirely necessary. In a world that often values speed over substance, your perspective, your sensitivity, empathy, and authenticity is not just valuable, it is indispensable.